All right, looks like we are live. And welcome, friends. Thank you to the Diocese of Wisconsin for inviting TENS into this session this evening. We are going to be talking about best practices for your stewardship campaigns. Now, while TENS does have a particular point of view, and we have our own stewardship material, which is free for you to download and use as you like and adapt, I'll also be talking about best practices to run fundraising campaigns. So if you're using another model, whatever you're doing for your annual campaign, you'll be able to take tonight's information and use it that way. We'll be covering some general best practices. We'll also review some specific things about the TENS materials, but by and large, I want you to know that everything we're saying tonight applies to all things related to stewardship and campaign running. And that's what TENS does. We have a model, but there are lots of them out there. We want you to pick the one that works for you and have good tools and ideas around it. Our learning objectives tonight, we're going to start off with looking at some statistics of the fundraising and Episcopal landscape in which we are right now. It's not always good news, but we have some good news to share about it. We're going to talk a little bit about this year's TENS approach to fundraising campaigns and our particular model. And then we're going to talk about how to talk about money and faith. We have so many places in our society that tell us not to cross those two things, that money and faith don't have anything to do with each other, but in fact, they are kindred in many ways. So let's talk about that and how you can message and talk about money in your congregation. We'll give some tips and pointers about that. We're also going to talk about 2025 in as a fundraising landscape. Ooh, it's a doozy this year, and we want to give you some ideas and ways to think about uh, some things that might be happening in your congregations or some questions you might be getting so that you can have some ways to approach it and talk to folks about where they are and where the community is. From the Giving USA report, which is a large nonprofit that puts together a massive report every year, the 2024 report is the most recent one that we have, and it reflects 2023 results. Okay, so we're a year and a half out of date. But what it tells us about what happened in the Episcopal Church is that we saw a decline in membership. I think that doesn't surprise us. But look at this. We saw an increase in Sunday attendance, a really big increase in Sunday attendance in 2023. So while membership was going down, people weren't necessarily signing up and some people were leaving. We saw a lot of people coming into the pews, maybe not sticking around or maybe not affiliating with a church, but coming and visiting. This was really an interesting point, and I want us to talk a little bit about that as we dig deeper into the materials, because it says something fascinating, I think, about who we are and where we are in membership and in our work and ministry. So with that in mind, we also saw a small increase in contributions. That's some good news. And a really big increase in the average pledge amount in 2023. So a small increase in contributions overall, but a lot of people increasing their pledge. And that's good news, but it's unsustainable. Why is it unsustainable? Because fewer people giving more money sounds like it might be good, but in the long run, that doesn't play out well. People can't do that forever. And 2023 was not a bad year in the market as 2025 might be. And so we learned that when things are good, people are sharing generously because they can and they're able to, but it's not sustainable. Fewer people giving more money is not a trend that we want to hang our stewardship hat on. We want to give people other models and other ideas for thinking about sustainability in our church revenue streams. That's a little bit about the Episcopal Church. Let's take a look at the overall market for fundraising, the charitable dollar as it is, in terms of the religious landscape. And we see that in the past 40 years, Fundraising for religious institutions has increased year by year in pretty incredible amounts. So if you think about $143 billion a year going to religious institutions across the country, that's a huge piece of the charitable market. And that's good news. But it also says that, that well, we're going to take a look at the next slide and see how that helps us fit in with what's going on nationally. Because while religion does get the lion's share of the charitable dollar out there, that's good. We have seen a massive decline, 50% decline since 1984. 50% we've lost in the market share in religious institutions. We're still the highest, but we went from 57% in 1983 to 26% of the charitable dollar in 2023. That's a big change. What it's saying to us is that even though we're still on the top, congratulations, it says that our nonprofit siblings are doing really good work in getting their message out, in getting their donors activated, in giving them some reasons to want to give money to those organizations. And we know that healthcare and education, the environment, arts organizations, your school, your alma mater, they are all asking you and your members for contributions, and they're doing a good job of it. They've professionalized fundraising on their staff, they've prioritized it, and they're seeing those results play out over the last 40 years as religion has not kept pace with the professionalization of fundraising. We still do it face to face in our campaign strategy, and it's working in a lot of ways for us, but we're not as aggressive at fundraising as our nonprofit siblings. Now, many would say that's a good thing. We don't want to be aggressive in the church about something, but we're seeing how we are getting less of the charitable dollar than we used to. That is frightening because we could start to dip below the lion's share in the coming decade. And then we'll really start to tip out of balance and how sustainable our institutions can be. Okay, well, that's some bad news, but let's talk about where the hope is, because that's what we are as Christians. We are people of hope, and we want to talk about how we reverse the trend. The first way is that we run really efficient campaigns where our nonprofit siblings are teaching us some skills that we can take from them. It's about efficiency and getting the message out. And they're talking about impact. They're talking about impact and what they do and how they affect the market or the people, their neighbors in their own way. So we're going to talk about ways that we should and can be doing that. We need to diversify the ways that people can give. Checks and pledges and the passing the plate work for a lot of people, but they're falling out in younger generations. Um, and so we're going to need to be able to diversify online tools, but also working with people who are giving from retirement assets. How do we create those giving opportunities and advertise them as well as options in our churches so that people can give in all the ways that they need to? We need to include more voices. Diversity isn't just in the ways we accept money, but also in the ways we include the people who are running our campaigns. We need to include more voices, and we'll talk a little bit about what I mean in that. We need to talk about volunteer recruitment as well. Volunteer recruitment, not just for our stewardship committees, but for all of the work that we do, because a lot of times uh, we are finding out that younger members, our Gen Z members and the up and coming Gen Alpha members, they are responding first to the work that the church is doing in the community before wanting to come in and sit through a Sunday service. Maybe they'll come on Saturdays and hang out with you in your food ministry or your show up on a weekday for your after school program or something like that before they start coming to church. It's reversing the way we think about church volunteers. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And TENS has a lot of information to share with you about that in other ways as well. So finally, I want us to talk about multi-generational campaigns, making certain that we are reaching everyone in our church who's able to make a gift and not just relying on our oldest members who have been giving faithfully for decades. They're not going to be able to do that forever. So we need to make certain that there is a base coming in under them that is ready for that discipleship. These are some ways that we can exercise hope and reverse some of these trends. But let's talk a little bit about the TENS theme, and then we're going to narrow down a little bit more on some of these topics I was talking about. TENS this year, the theme for our annual stewardship materials is about that mission and impact. It's about telling our story, tell out my soul that moment that Mary Magdalene comes away from the tomb so excited. It's that moment that Mary, the mother of Jesus, has when she's told that she's bearing God's son. That moment of being so excited that you just can't wait to share that good news with the world. And we want to encourage our members to find that thing in their own story of connection to their church and their community. That's news that they want to share. What would they stand on the roof and proclaim? What would they shout out to their friends and neighbors? What makes them proud and excited and in love with their congregation? That's where our stewardship is, because stewardship is relational, it's storytelling. And so we're going to talk a lot about that theme in our materials this year. If you're using our materials, that's the refrain that will be coming through. So this year, as you move into your campaign, and congratulations, it's May and you're already starting to think about this. You're not waiting until the end of August or September to start thinking about your campaign. You're doing it early. It gives you lots of time to plan. And what we see when we have time to plan for a campaign, when we have time to do that work, is that we run more efficient campaigns. We think about all the things that we need to create if we want to do a brochure, if we want to update our website, if we want to have an event or whatever it is, we have the time and energy to plan for that. So starting early is great. We want to implement some great tools this year in your campaign. If you don't have a way for people to make gifts online, you have the whole summer to test that out and to think about ways that your church can create that. Online fundraising is it's not just the future, it's the present, it's now as well. We are here. So make certain that there is a way for your fundraising to happen online. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that in a minute. We have some great resources in our library, which are free to you in our tips and tools section that show you how to create a good online giving form and tell you a little bit about what your website should do and some things that it shouldn't do so that you can use those tools and implement great ones. We want you to make sure that you connect this year, that you use all the ways that you have to get the message out that you are running a campaign, that you're trying to reach everyone, that you get that message out there. Email, snail mail, social media, website, chancel announcements, your bulletin board, all of the things that you do in your congregation to get the word out. Your campaign is a really important thing that you do. Make sure that there is no reason people don't understand that there's a campaign running and that they could be a part of it. Send paper when it's appropriate. Email is an increasingly useful tool for contacting our members because they can make a decision and they can send it back to you. It goes really quickly. You don't have to wait for the post or wait for people to drop forms off or things like that. It can go a lot more quickly. Whatever you do, build the hype. Use this time to really talk about, be excited about running a campaign. So many times I have witnessed uh, campaign time in Episcopal churches and sort of whoever's making the announcement is kind of dragging themselves up there, saying it's that time of year again. We have to do this work. And I know that that's sometimes how we feel about it. And that's not a message that inspires people to be excited about the campaign. And the campaign is exciting, not just because it's going to raise money for our mission, but because it's this chance to tell the story about why we love our congregation, why we support the ministry that we do. The hype is really important. So build those tools, create those tools, let everybody know, and contact absolutely everyone. If you haven't run a every member canvas or a house to house or some sort of way that everybody gets invited and has some kind of personal conversation, it might be time to think about that. Although you can do it in small groups, in dinner churches, you can do it uh, through letters, of course, and all the different models. But pick a model, pick one that you haven't done in a while, and take a look at it. So if you've been writing letters for the last 5 years, maybe this is the year to do an event or to ask 12 people around the congregation to host dinner parties and have 6 people over to their house where they talk about the campaign and receive information about it. Or maybe this is the time when you do a church supper and you invite everybody down into the parish hall and you do a campaign that way, or maybe it's a every member canvas. Whatever it is, think about your model. If you have some questions about models, ask TENS. We have lots of different ways to connect the message, but pick a model that's new to you or that you haven't done in a while. Shake it up. If we run the same campaign every year, we'll get similar results each year. And so if you ever want to break through your campaign plateau, it's time to rethink how you do a campaign. And you can always come back to an old favorite, right? You should have these on sort of on a shuffling rotation, pull them out from year to year. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of recommendations for your campaign this year, I think there's a lot of noise this year. There's a lot of noise in the media. There's a lot of noise of anxiety. Even when we are sitting quiet, our heads get filled with the things that are going on around us and maybe our reaction to them. And I think that as we ask people to seriously consider how they are going to support with their time, talent, and treasure the ministry of their church this year, we want to provide space for reflection, for contemplation, for prayer, for discernment, because I think it's one of the few quiet spaces that we're going to be able to get this year. It's such a noisy year. So TENS has weekly reflections as a part of its package, which you can use independent of whatever model you use. They are going to use that theme of people who are telling their stories, and then they ask these open-ended questions at the end that are sort of reflection questions. They're really good for kind of getting people's creativity going, using in a small group meeting for or individually in a prayer meeting, something like that. Let's make certain that we have time to reflect this year as we're asking people to consider their relationship and their giving to time, talent, and treasure to our ministries. So this is about our formation. The theology of generosity, the theology of abundance is all around us. It's in our creation story where God created everything and made it good. It's in the through line of how God keeps calling us back into relationship with each other, finding the good things that we can connect about, finding that message of love that works throughout our story as people of God. And it's at the same time all around us and not inherent. So generosity and abundance asks of us a deep faith. It asks of us a commitment to that and believing in something even when we're feeling scarce or anxious or scared or hurt. We need to, we power through that a lot, or we use community to help us get through that. So make certain that we're doing some formation this year around our campaigns and around our work together. So that could be using these weekly reflections that I talk about and doing them in some sort of formation exercise, a rector's forum, or a between the services conversation, or an adult ed group, an online group, asking your small groups to do it. If you have a knitting group and you have a book club and you have a movie night, asking 10 minutes to do some reflection around your stewardship and people's storytelling is not a bad idea to infuse into existing group structures. Maybe a book study. And I have a great one that I love. It's Henry Nouwen's A Spirituality of Fundraising. If you don't have a copy of this book, it's $6.95 on Amazon. It's really large print. You can read the whole thing in about 20 minutes, and it is absolutely full of beautiful information on how fundraising isn't just a chore. It's a part of our commitment to Christian community, and it's a joy. There's beauty in telling your story and asking other people to join you. So a book study using something like that or some other materials that are out there. There's a whole bibliography in the TENS resource library that you can use on stewardship books. But that's a really good one, mostly because it can be read really quickly and you can have a rich discussion in a whole hour, which includes time for people to read the book if they haven't. So think about doing some formation this year around stewardship, and think about doing it before October. I think a lot of times we don't talk about stewardship the rest of the year, and that the first inkling we get, or the first reminder we get, that the church is grateful for our gifts and that there's something to do, is when the campaign's about to start. So do it a little earlier. Give people a chance to soak this in. Catherine's asked for the title of the book again. It's A Spirituality of Fundraising by Father Henry Nouwen. So take a look at that. And I will put it in the materials. I'll send you a link to it when I send out the stuff so that you can access it. Absolutely, Catherine. You're welcome. All right. So I talked about that losing market share to the charitable dollar, and how our nonprofit siblings are gaining ground. And that's not a bad thing. We want arts organizations and environmental and healthcare to succeed, and we know that that work needs to be funded. Um, and we don't want to lose our own role or voice in the world and in the financial fundraising landscape. One of the things that our nonprofit siblings do a great job at is connecting their members or their supporters with the mission through impact. And your members are inspired by what you do for the community, outside and inside the congregation, everyone that you interact with. Those stories, those testimonials, that information helps us distinguish ourselves as community centers, as centers of faith and learning, as social service providers. And it puts us right back in line with what our nonprofit direct service providers do in the community when they house or feed or educate or support people in their journey of recovery or transformation, the things that nonprofits do so well. Churches do that too. We don't do a good job of talking about it. So let's sharpen that language of how we change lives, we save the world, we work with communities to find people where they're at and introduce them to a way of being. And we provide services, so many services. If you haven't gone to the asset-based community development Episcopal Church website, that was a lot of words all at once. I can send you that link too. The asset-based community development work that the Episcopal Church has invested in over the last 10 years shows not just our houses of worship and our schools, but all of the programs that your churches and thousands like your church have uploaded to the Episcopal Church over the years of food programs and education programs and environmental programs and support and recovery programs, all the things that we're doing. And it shows how deeply connected Episcopalians are in our communities in providing service to people who might not be Episcopalians at all, who are just needing our love and our approach and our support. So get good at telling the story about how your church transforms the world one person at a time in small and large ways. Focus on what you do with the money that you raise. Talk about the ministries that happen. You can pick one every week or one every month. Did you like the anthem the choir sang today? That was your gifts at work. Did you participate in yesterday's food drive? Those are your gifts at work. Thank you. It's reminding people that their gifts make all of this possible, that we're grateful for it, and that we're doing this work all the time. So just keep drawing that line between your members and their money and the mission and help them connect it going both ways. Talk about your impact on the community. Talk about how many people you feed, or how many students you help, or how many backpacks you stuffed and delivered, or how many socks you collected for people who live on the street, or all those things that we do. How many tons of canned food did we collect and send out in a year? Canned food weighs a lot, and there are a lot of tons of food that we deliver. We don't think about those numbers as being something we should talk about, but they inspire people because they're quantitative. People could say, oh, yeah, that's a big addition to our community. People need that. They live on that. That's something we did. So tell them that story, give them that message. Let them know how you directly and indirectly serve your neighbors. One of the questions I often ask a congregation when I'm consulting with them about their campaigns is, what would your community be like without you? Um, and they have great impact and story to tell about all the work that they do and how the community would really miss them if they weren't there. But they don't answer that question until they get asked that. So what if we thought about a way of talking about our work without having to go to that dire place of what if you disappeared and you weren't able to do it? What if we were able to share the story of how we do mission and ministry in the community without the anxiety, without the big question about it, just talking about how we change lives, how we seek and serve Christ and our neighbors, how we walk with people on their journeys. Another great way to inspire your members is to engage storytelling, make it a part of your campaign. Um, One of the things that my church and many others, I think, do is what we call Minute for Mission. We do it certainly during the campaign season, but we do it throughout the church year. Somebody stands up and says, I've been a member for 10 years. 20 years, 40 years, a half a minute. And this is why I came here. This is what I love about this place. This is the ministry that connects with me. This is why I'm raising my family here. Whatever their story is, they talk about that and they deliver it in a way that inspires people. You can do that in your announcements. You can also do it in your newsletters or on your website or your Facebook or other kind of social media channels that you might be a part of. So tell those stories, those minutes for mission. Testimonials are such an important way because they're member to member. They're really authentic stories. It's not the clergy telling us what we should feel about church. It's members talking to each other about why this place matters to them. And it gives the vestry a chance to communicate. It gives people who just come and they're not a part of any committee a chance to speak if they want to tell their story. So include some questions. What made you come? What made you pick us? And why did you keep coming? What is a program that speaks to you, resonates within you? What do your children talk about when they come out of Sunday school that they learned or that they did? Tell us that story because little children lead us, and they teach us all about who we are and how we are. Talk about a time when the community was there for you and you needed them. Those stories are so powerful when people come back and say, it's going through this really dark time and you don't have to tell all the details, but then, and here was my community. You helped me through or over this moment that we lived through. Tell those stories. Also, bring in what I like to call ministry impact reports. And these aren't just external or outreach ministries, they're also your internal ministries. We have this many people who meet every Tuesday night for their book group. We have a group that, walks every Saturday they do 5 miles. Look at that. That's great. Whatever it is that your community does together, talk about that and bring those reports back in to your members so that they hear the story of how people are connecting, how people are giving their time, their money, their ideas, to support your community. And you can write those stories up again in your newsletter or on your social media, or you can make them as announcements. We all have a video camera that lives with us now. So you can make a 30-second video and share that on social media. There's so many great ways to do ministry impact reports that don't involve all this data or all this time and energy. Really quick, beautiful stories about how your ministry impacts your volunteers, your members, and the people who benefit from your services. This year, I want to make certain that we are talking about planned giving in our annual campaigns as well. And that's not to say that you have to have a whole planned giving campaign within your stewardship campaign or your annual fundraising, but you should mention that planned giving is a part of the way that people make gifts to church. That a lot of members see this as sort of like institutionalizing their pledge, making it in perpetuity, or seeing other things that they can do with it. And remembering that it takes 7 asks of planned gifts for people to really get the message. Usually that's what industry tells us. It takes 7 times to be asked before you say, maybe I should start considering that. So give them those opportunities in soft ways. You can put it on your pledge card. I've left the church in my estate plans. I'd like information on how to do that. These are soft asks that just remind people that planned giving is there, that it's an option, and that we can do it. And so think about that. Make sure that we include it. You can include a story about a planned gift that really changed your congregation. Maybe a bequest came in and allowed you to do something great, or maybe just the steady, constant gift of that a planned gift can make into an endowment or into an operating fund can really share a beautiful story and remind people that planned gifts don't have to be millions of dollars. A small gift is as impactful when given over time or stretched out. Any size gift can be planned, and they don't all have to like create or build a new wing or do something mind-blowing, but they are inspirational and important no matter the size. The number one reason that people do not leave a legacy gift is because no one asked them to do it. And I have conversations with clergy often who say, I wish I'd asked this person for a gift. Well, I could have, and now I can't. They've lost access to their funds. They're in a retirement community now, or maybe they've passed on and it's impossible. And they regret not having done that work. Okay, it's not easy. It's not easy talking about money. It's also not easy talking about death and combine money and death. And it's really hard, but it's work that we do. Our congregations were built on planned gifts. It's a sustaining part of how we do this work and really important for us to remember that it exists. So give your members some information about it, soft asks, um, present the information, and over time, this message will sink in. I talked earlier about virtual stewardship or online giving, and we talked about how important it is that we have a way for people to give online. If I were to come to your church this week as a visitor, I would love that. It would be great. I would have a wonderful time. But when the plate came by, if there were no reason or no way for me to give a gift online, you wouldn't get much from me because I don't carry a lot of cash in my wallet anymore. I use my phone or my debit card for a lot of my purchasing, and I don't take money out because I spend it when it's in my wallet. So I've learned that lesson. So you should have a way. People can always give cash. They can always write a check. But for those of us who don't carry cash or checks, there should be a way for people to make a gift online. And I've seen so many creative ways for this. Um, QR codes, that quick read code, that box with squiggly lines that looks like a barcode. People are putting that right in their bulletin. And that's a way. I was at I was at a diocesan event in West Texas a couple of months ago, and we were having a closing liturgy, and there was the donate tag, and I was able to make a gift. And I was able to do that with my phone, and it sent me right to the donation page, and in seconds it was done. So think about that. Put it in your bulletin. I've also seen congregations create sort of laminated pew cards with that same code on the back of it. And so you can put that in your pew rack, and it's always there. People can make a gift. It doesn't have to be this big deal. It's not like you have a flashing kiosk at the back of your church or an ATM. It's a very subtle way. And it acknowledges that we carry our phones in church these days, that they're as easy to access as our wallets, perhaps even easier. So allow people to make a gift online. And certainly have a donate button on your website so that visitors can do that, so that your members can fulfill their pledges. Recurring giving is a beautiful thing because you can give through PayPal, or a if you're using some online platform, clicking that switch to say make this gift every month or every week or every 2 weeks, whatever period of frequency you select. That keeps the money coming in to the church and makes it very easy for you to complete your gift. So we have lots of information on the TENS website about virtual stewardship. If you haven't adopted a plan yet or want more information, come and find us. This is all leading us to something that I call donor-centric fundraising. maximizing donations by maximizing the way that people can give. And what you want to do is make certain that they know that it's more than just their cash and their check, pledges and plates in an envelope that are accessible to them, but that the church will accept gifts on their terms, on your terms as a member, the way you want to give. So for people who like to use a bank check or a bill pay feature through their online banking or their banking app, that's a way that people are making their gift to church these days. Certainly, mobile giving, if you have that opportunity, please do that. For your members who are living on retirement assets, make certain that they know that they can make a qualified charitable distribution right from their retirement account. It's a tax wise. It saves them on their taxes. It's a good option for them. And it makes a gift that can come right into your church account from their account. So make certain that you say that they can do that so that they know that that's a possibility. A lot of people living in retirement assets come up against that required minimum distribution once they get to a certain age, and they have to take out a certain amount of money from their IRA, whether they want to or not. And so some of that can be used for their church donations. Let people know that that's a way that they can make their gift and that that's fine. Some people are getting even more savvy about their investments and are using donor advised funds or community foundations. And again, you don't have to be a bazillionaire to do this. You can have very modest gifts that you put into a donor advised fund that earns a little bit of money and then makes grants out to the agencies or the institutions that you want to fund. Some people are making their charitable gifts through that. So make certain that your church is able to accept a gift from a donor advised fund. If you or your treasurer doesn't know how to do this work yet, because this is new information for you, your diocesan finance team can help you with that. TENS can make some general advice, but not specific advice. That'll be left to you and your diocesan team to do. But just know what's out there. Finally, there are still workplaces that match gifts. There are fewer than they were before, but there's still some out there. And so for those that don't exclude religious fundraising or religious institutions from workplace giving, check that out. It's a great way to double a gift. And people can always use appreciated assets. I realize that in 2025 so far this year, finding stock that's appreciated might be hard, but people do get stock options that they've been sitting on for a long time, and securities are a great thing that they can use to make a one-time or a pledge gift to their congregation. The thing I want to say about this is that we need to meet donors and members where they're at and not just say, we expect your check or your cash in a plate. That the more ways we have of accepting their gifts, the easier it will be for them to give. And that's what we need to think about in this. I want to talk a little bit about how we talk about money in church. And I want to give you four sort of scenarios and some language that you can adopt and adapt to your circumstance. It's not always easy to engage people in talking about money, but here are a few scenarios to help you think about it. So when we're talking about a renewal gift, so somebody's been a regular giver, you want to ask them, will you renew your giving this year? If you'll notice what this pitch or this selected language says, it talks about why we're doing this. We're raising more money than ever to fund this and that and the other thing. And it says, I already made my gift, and now I'm asking you to join me in making yours. When you ask someone to join you to do something that you've already done, it is so compelling because you're authentic in that moment, right? I've done this and now I'm asking you to do it. that comes across as a great uh, authenticity piece. It's also so important, I say this at this moment, that when your campaign starts, uh, your clergy, your vestry, your stewardship committee, your church leadership, they all should have made their pledges on the first day, in the first hour, in the first minute, because it is so good to be able to say to the congregation, we're doing our fundraising now, and 100% of the church leadership has committed to giving to the campaign this year. Um, this is really important. So let people know that they're joining you, not just doing something that you haven't yet gotten around to do yourself. When we need to run those kinds of campaigns where we're asking people to make a stretch gift or increase their giving from last year, let people know why you're doing it. So we're trying to increase more because we need to do these things. And make those things be um, tangible mission related things. You don't just want to raise more money because healthcare and insurance is more expensive. That's not compelling. But to say, so we can serve our neighbors in a better way, so we can do more outreach, whatever those reasons are that your giving increase is going to allow, talk about that in your pitch. And then, ask them, can you make a stretch this year? Can you do that work? The third scenario here about it being a tough year is a reminder for us that even when we think or we suspect someone's had a bad year financially or for other reasons, instability in their house or in their job or in their lives in some way, a medical emergency or a personal emergency, we should still ask them to participate in the campaign because it's really inconsiderate, even offensive, to write them off before they have a chance to respond. So don't make that decision for them. Let them say, if they need to, no, I can't participate this year, but I'll do other things. Or I really wish I could make that gift, but this is what I can do instead. Or yeah, we're going to participate, of course. Why wouldn't we? So you never know how people are going to respond to that. Taking the choice away from them is disrespectful, and it also doesn't live into the hope that we have, the faith that we have, that people pull themselves together and find generosity even when we might think it's impossible for them to do that. So even when you think somebody's had a bad year, ask them to participate, name it. I know some things have been really rough for you guys this year. Uh, you know, and we're here for you. Your community is here to support you, but will you be able to participate in the campaign? Can we count on you? Any amount is appropriate. And remind people of that too. It's okay. Finally, I want to make sure that we know that we should be communicating with newcomers at an appropriate time. When is appropriate? I often get asked, probably not the first Sunday or the second Sunday, but when they've been coming there for, 6 weeks or a couple of months, it's time to say, this is how we do our fundraising at church. This is how our budget is created. Seems like you're a part of our community, or maybe they've indicated they want to be a part of the community. Don't wait till the whole next pledge year to involve them in making a gift. You should have a new member packet. Here's all the vestry and their phone numbers. Here's who does all the ministries and how to contact them. Here's all the committees you could join. And here's a pledge form and how we raise our budget. And here's a copy of the budget. And you can see what people are doing to help our ministry succeed. Make sure you don't wait a whole year to include someone. If they come to Christmas services and you've just finished your campaign, they shouldn't have to wait till November to be asked to give. Help them do that. It's a part of your newcomer work. Again, it's about respect. If people are saying after a few weeks, I want to be a member here, I'm really thinking about this, then give them the option. They might say, I want to wait it out for a while, and then make a decision. That's fine. They've had that chance to make that choice. Whenever we talk about money in church, it's a pastoral moment. And so we want to make sure that it's a safe space for people to be able to reach out to us. Nurture all voices. If you're doing this work in a small group, or you're doing it at a dinner church, or maybe at a whole church meeting where people are talking about their gifts or their ideas, make sure you create a space where people can talk and listen. Um, Keep things really positive. If people are like trying to like show their axes to grind or their problems, focus the conversation back on what we can do and what we're doing and make that a positive experience. Refer them to a ministry head or the clergy or the treasurer if they have specific questions, especially if it's something they don't like that's going on. You don't have to answer that if you don't know the answer. Just tell them where they can find that information. And let's make certain that we wrap our conversation about fundraising in prayer and discernment. Whenever I hand someone a pledge form, I ask them to pray about it and think about it and get it back to me. I don't want them to fill it out right there and send it back in without thinking. I want them to take it home and have a conversation with their family around the dinner table or think about how they might participate this year so that it's a discerned activity, not an impulsive one. So let's talk about a few of the things that might be coming up this fall. It's going to be a year um, as we encounter the ever unfolding roller coaster of our economic situation, our political situation, things that we can and can't expect from our public services. And we don't know even now what October and November are going to look like. So, how do we talk about money when there's economic fallout in your community from inflation or supply chain weirdness or other disruptions that are going on? Let's remember that there's never any shame in pledging less this year than in other year. So people don't have to maintain a level of giving out of show. They should make a gift that's appropriate for their household and their budget and their place in the world. Every gift matters no matter its size. But not everybody responds to the economy in the same way. Depending on how people make their income or where their money comes from or how it's been stewarded, they might not be impacted by the same things as others are. So don't expect that because some people in your community are struggling, or maybe you are struggling, that your whole church is feeling or experiencing the same thing. So this is, again, don't make that decision for them. Invite them to make the best gift they can. Remember that some people will respond very generously, even in a weird year. If when I have a list of people I'm going to talk to or hand out their pledge form to, I always pass my list in front of the clergy first to say, is there anyone on this list I shouldn't be talking to, or that I might need to be extra gentle with, or that you want to take instead of me? Because our clergy might know something that's going on in a family and say, I want to take that work, or I know what's going on. They don't have to tell you, and they shouldn't tell you what the situation is, but they might say, go gently, or, expect something like this, or whatever, right? Just have a little check-in. And if you learn anything in a conversation with a member, when you talk to them pastorally and you think that it should go to the clergy instead of resting and staying with you, say, I might want to talk with our rector or vicar about this, or encourage you to, and say, this is a little beyond me. Take it where somebody who might be able to help you or answer that question for you might be able to go. Again, I wanted to remember that even though this year is weird, we've been through weird years before. We remember the Great Recession. We remember the pandemic. We got through those things. We recovered in some way. And even though it took time and it took effort, and we might think that we're not still back, we did get through these huge moments. in our national and community lives. And we'll get through whatever this experience of supply chain and tariffs and taxes become. So remember that as we're moving through, we'll get through this. We'll find a way through. That is a part of our Christian hope. And if the community is suffering, if services are being cut out for mental health or recovery or food security or medical security, uh, because federal or state funding is cut for those things, the work of our churches in those areas is going to be yet more acute and more needed. And so this is the time for us to invest in those social services and serve our neighbors that are needy and are coming to us to say, will you feed me? As Jesus reminded us, when you do this to the least, you do it to me. And that's true theology in our church and in our way of serving our neighbors. We need to keep being present even when it feels scary or challenging to do so. Those are great mission reminders too, right? When people say, I'm thinking about my gift, it's a really struggle this year. You remind them that the church still needs to keep going, that we need to do this work, that our neighbors are also hungry and scared and worried. Well, what do you do in a stewardship campaign where everybody already knows that there are some fundamental changes coming to the budget? Maybe it's been talked about, maybe there's a position that you're going to have to cut, or hours from a position or a program or something like that, right? If things are really dire, you're going into fundraising season, how do you talk about a budget that is scary or being cut? Because you still want to be positive, right? Stewardship is about celebration of community. It's about bringing people together to tell stories. It's about supporting the mission of the church. And that's where we go with those conversations. We get focused in on the mission, on what we can do, on what's important. The work of the church continues. We might have fewer resources, but the work doesn't change. And so remind people of that, that this is a time that we need to focus on the mission, not on the problems. So that might mean we need more volunteers to come and do this work. We might need to roll up our sleeves in a different way as we tighten our belts and things like that. So think about that. Also remember that there might be someone in your congregation who you've been waiting because there's a big capital campaign on the horizon someday, and you're going to need to replace the boiler or the roof or something like that. So you haven't been asking them to make their big gift, but this is the year that they might need to make that big gift to save a beloved program or to keep funding a staff member. You know, this is an emergency. If it is an emergency, it could be the thing that you ask that reserve donor that you might have in your congregation that could make an extraordinary gift to make that gift. These people exist. Finally, we're in uncertain times, but this is not new to us as Christians. We were born into and out of uncertainty. We've experienced 2,000 years of good ways to talk about how we stay true to mission, even when things are chaotic around us. Whether that's actual persecutions or whether that's changes in society that make it different for us to do our work. We are solid as Christians. We know what our mission is. It was given to us by Jesus to seek and serve, to make disciples. And then in turn, he promised that he would be with us till the end of the ages. And this is a way for us to approach our stewardship and remember that it's hope. It's hope filled and hopeful. And all giving, time, talent, and treasure is expected and possible. And and we can do that regardless of the amount. You can find some way to carry on the mission of the church. And it's on us. The prayer book tells us who are the ministers of the church. It's not just people in collars or in fancy shirts. It's all of us, everyone who's baptized, everyone who shows up, everyone who's willing. is a minister of the church. I want to focus on appreciative inquiry as a way of modeling how we talk about difficult topics in tough situations. And then I'm going to go through a couple of other fine points before we finish up and get into your questions. Appreciative inquiry, if you've never encountered it before, is a way of thinking about problems or about opportunities from an asset-based place rather than a deficit-based place. It tells us that to focus on what we can do rather than what we no longer could do so that we can keep the conversation positive. It doesn't hide challenges or deficits, but it says we have more assets than we have negatives. So think about that as we imagine how to create our conversation about it. And here's some questions that you might do in your stewardship campaign that are appreciative inquiry focused. So if you're using the weekly reflections as a part of our campaign tools, they have an open-ended question at the end of each one that's sort of positive focused, deep connection to sort of positive outcome. Or you might ask them, what ministry or program do we have that you really love, that is most exciting to you, that resonates most deeply within you? Tell me why that is. You might ask them, like, what would you do? What would you like to give to our neighbors if we could offer anything to them? That's an appreciative inquiry question because it says, what's around us? Maybe also like, who could we partner with? Are there other nonprofits, schools, institutions in our neighborhood that are assets that we could say, well, they're doing a food program and we're doing a food program. What would it look like if we combined some ideas or helped each other out or did alternating weekends or things like that? Like how do we do this work with partners to extend it even further? And another good appreciative inquiry is, what are you personally willing to do? What are the assets, skills, gifts that God has given you that you're in turn willing to share with the community? Is there a class you could teach or a skill you could teach or some wisdom you could provide, a committee you could serve on where your tools or expertise would be really useful? Are there things that you could, bring others in community with? And teach your skills to. Um, and if you're leading a ministry right now, if you've been on the Altar Guild forever or on the hospitality committee, who would you ask to join you in that? And how would you teach that skill to some people who might also need to learn it? I hope that you can take some of these appreciative inquiry ideas and weave them into how you talk about gift and process in your campaign because they are conversation starters. They're soup starter for great conversation about ministry and engagement. All right, so let's get back into some brass tacks before we finish up. And we'll talk a little bit about the timeline for running an effective campaign before we end our conversation. So, regardless of the method you use, about 4 weeks before you kick off, you should let everybody know what your theme is. If you pick our theme, we have logos and art to go with it. If you have a different idea that your stewardship committee has come up with and you have some materials about that, let people know. Stewardship is starting soon. We have a theme. This is what that theme is about. This is how we determined it. This is what matters to us. About 2 weeks before your kickoff, send another note out there. If you're doing letters or emails or social media or announcements or all of those, talk about how our budget is derived, where we use our money for mission, what's going on. And this is a good reminder to test your website, then make sure a donation can go through. I learned the hard way once. I had a whole campaign set up and I'd forgotten to, flick some switch and the donation just wouldn't go through. And I was like, why isn't this working? People were calling and saying it's not working. How embarrassing. So make sure your donation platform works, that you know how to do it and you see where the money has gone before your campaign starts. When you're at your kickoff Sunday, it's a big deal, right? And our campaign should be a time of excitement, of joy, of connection. So make sure that everything is ready to go. Have materials if you're doing like a case for support or a narrative budget, a copy of the budget from last year to show what it's going to be like. Um, Make sure that you have that. Make sure you have your pledge cards or promise cards, if that's what you call them, ready to go so that people can take that home with them. You don't want to have your kickoff and say, well, the materials haven't yet been printed, but we'll get them to you. No, so have that all ready for the day that you say you're going to kick off. And if it's your tradition, or maybe you want to start a new tradition of having a festive coffee hour, a big cake, or a conversation, something that says this is not just a normal Sunday. We're really excited. Something big is happening here. Our campaign is kicking off. As your campaign goes on, if you're doing a 4 week or a 6 week campaign or however long your campaign goes, keep the momentum going from week to week. Those middle weeks can sometimes start to feel a little tired, where we got the early gifts in and we haven't yet had the rush of everybody finishing at the end. And so sometimes weeks like 4 and 5 of a campaign can be a little like, are we going to make it? So make sure you have some exciting things planned, stories to tell, testimonials to give, a way to keep everybody's spirits going while the campaign is going so that it doesn't feel flat, and that people are excited and moving for it. So if you're using our methods, we have a we have liturgical resources that follow the theme. So prayers of the people, blessings at the offertory. Maybe you're going to create another thing. And also, how are you going to finish your campaign? Are you going to have an in-gathering Sunday, a dedication Sunday, a big party, or a lunch at the end? Well, how does your campaign end? When you're all said and done, and you've had your last Sunday of the campaign, um, some extra work happens usually for the vestry and stewardship committee, where you're cleaning up any gifts that haven't yet come in, pledges you expected, but people haven't yet done them. That just happens every year because timing or whatever, right? So make sure you give yourself some time to clean up the campaign, to keep asking for those gifts. And if your campaign's ending around the end of November, you also have a big holiday in the middle of all that. So give people the grace for that time that they might need to get their gifts in. Everyone should get a thank you note. It is so nice if you can handwrite them. They can be really quick and brief, and you can divide the work up between your clergy and your vestry and your stewardship committee. They don't have to have the amount on it if that's not your preference in your campaign, but you can just say, Davy, thank you for your gift this year. It really means a lot to us. Send it. Handwritten note or a personally crafted email uh, is a really beautiful way to say thank you and we heard you. And it's above and beyond what the treasurer will send them saying, we received your pledge and this is what you pledged and this is how you're doing and all that kind of official paperwork. A thank you note is really truly just that. Finally, at the end, maybe sometime in January after you've, had Christmas and everybody comes back, call your stewardship committee together one last time before you start focusing on next year's campaign. Thank them, evaluate the campaign performance. And we have a whole webinar and a toolkit on our website to show you how to evaluate last year's campaign performance and just say, what did we experience here? How was it? What did we learn? What would we do again? What wouldn't we do? And how did it fill in? Where did our money come from? who gave, what's the percentages of increases and decreases in gifts? What do we want to know about that? This moment for evaluation is really easy, important work to do. It's not that hard, and it sets us up for success for the next campaign or the next group that's going to take over that campaign work. That's what I wanted to share with you tonight. We have about 15 minutes left for your questions, but I want to remind you that you are all members of TENS, and welcome to the TENS family. Your key to the kingdom to get our downloadable materials is on the screen here, and I'll send it out in the materials that I send to the diocese later this evening. But Luke 1:46, Luke 1:46 is the password that will give you access to this year's pledge campaign materials. Everything else on our website is free and you don't need a password for it, but the downloadable materials you do. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pull us back into our group and ask you what your questions are about stewardship campaigns, anything we've talked about tonight, your stewardship questions in general. Hit me up. And I see Mary's already got her hand up. Mary.
Hi, thank you. This has been a really helpful presentation. I have two questions. One is that I'm from Grace Episcopal in Madison, and I am fairly new to the Episcopal Church. We have two separate fundraising campaigns. We have a stewardship campaign, which is focused on operating expenses. And then we have the Lenten Appeal, which is focused on mission. And I'm wondering, is that common? And for me, I see some disadvantage to treating them separately because you really can't totally separate them, and it's not as compelling to raise for operating as it is mission.
You don't say. Um, Mary, that's a really good question. And also, I wouldn't say it's common, but I would say that it's not completely out of the experience either of Episcopal churches that separate out their outreach or their mission from their operating. Some do it through an event, some do it through a special appeal. Some use their Christmas bazaar, their spaghetti dinner, or whatever it is to raise their money for outreach. And like you, I feel in general that we should have one budget and one fundraising campaign that supports all of it, because when we bring our mission into the house, we're saying this is all of our work, right? So it's not any different to pledge to fund our clergy and pay our utilities and keep our building maintained as it is to fund our outreach and our programs and things like that. I also realize that these are inherited things in a congregation that may have decades of tradition around them, and separating them or reincorporating them might take a lot of work. One of the tools that I would suggest that's helpful in educating people is called a narrative budget. And we have on our website, we have a way for you to think about narrative budgets. But what they do is that they take all of your mission and um, all of your fixed costs, your operating costs, and they combine them, but then they describe them in your ministry areas. So how much does our children and family service work cost? How much does our work in worship and pastoral life cost? How much does our outreach to our neighbors cost? How much does our inreach and our pastoral care cost? And you take your staff and your building and your utilities and your insurance and any program that goes into those ministry areas and describe them in those silos, number totals up to the same thing at the bottom of the budget. But what you're doing instead is saying our mission costs money, and it costs a little bit of our priest's time and a little bit of our light bill and a little bit of our HVAC and a little bit of our building use. And it also costs direct supplies in the food or the supplies or the people or the things that we pay for to run those programs. So a narrative budget is a good way of reintegrating that idea that mission isn't separate from our budget. And maybe over time you can reincorporate those. Also, tradition is a hard thing to change, and if it's working, then just connecting the dots between your annual and your Lenten campaign and making sure that people know both are important and what and they're not optional. You get involved in both, because when we stop giving to our mission, or when we separate it out, that we then like can cut it, and the last thing we want to do is cut our mission. We want to think about it in a more integrated way. So, Mary, I respect the place that you're in, um, and I understand that it's a hard one. So, that's a tool or some ideas. Maybe other people have experienced something like that. Anyone want to respond to Mary with what they're doing?
Well, I can say that I think that there is a real need in society to want to know where your money goes to. And I can see why a special appeal is used. Um, and also it's motivating. I think I'm wondering if the secret sauce is perhaps having a specific area of mission in that you want to say, I assume we all want to say that when you give to the general fund, it's going to the greatest needs, which also include our outreach and ministries and the good work we do in the community. Otherwise, again, these narratives aren't really hitting home, but maybe there's a specific ministry you want to focus on that year. And this makes me think, I guess that means we have some work as a church community to say what will be that focus, and that should maybe go in even before our stewardship time. And so now this feels like a lot more work of almost strategic planning.
Yeah. What Jolene said. That's a great answer to Mary's question. And also, yes, stewardship doesn't just happen to us as the calendar shifts over. It's something we should be strategic about. That's why I'm so excited that y'all are doing this work in May, because it gives you time to let this sink in and think about it. I really appreciate that. Thanks, Jolene, for your suggestion too.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? In that, I mean, we all know unrestricted money is the best because there are needs. And again, and nobody really feels excited to give to keep the lights on, right? That's a stereotype, but we need the money for that. And I'm wondering, have you seen um, areas instead of saying here's where you want to designate it to say what are your priorities? Have you seen people checking? Because I'm thinking about stewardship, and I want to know if someone cares about children's ministry versus, you know, outreach to, I don't know, maybe the college or food ministry, whatever the ministries you have. That's a good chance, a good opportunity for stewardship follow-up to say, well, here's what we're doing in this area based on what you care. So having designated areas of giving, however, I don't really want to restrict their giving. Right. Do you have any advice on that as far as having buckets?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Have you seen good models?
I've seen good and I've seen bad models for restricted fundraising because exactly what you say, right? So like a restricted gift means that people can fund one thing at the sacrifice of another, right? And that's not a good model for sustainability because at the end of the day, the whole budget needs to be funded, not just everybody's favorite projects. But I think that there are ways that we can ask questions about what your priorities are that maybe don't. So it's a separate question about what their priorities and interests are, then what are you going to contribute in time, talent, and treasure to the church this year? And we can keep a running list. Like if you use the TENS materials or others that are out there, one side of the pledge card is about time and talent, and the other is about treasure. And so you can capture people's interest. Like, I really care about the food program or the children's ministry or the yoga class that we do or the book group, and I want more information about those things. And then you can put that in your, if you're using Excel or a Google Sheet to do it, or if you're using a sophisticated system like Realm or some other CRM, consistent relationship management tool, that tracks that information for churches. You have that. So when it comes time to say the children's program needs a little more this year, you have a list of people to reach. But I feel like restricted giving is one of those things we don't want to or I don't feel that. I believe that restricted giving is not one of those things we want to encourage. And in fact, I recommend that vestries sort of have a sample gift acceptance or a gift acceptance policy that talks about not accepting restricted gifts or having a deep conversation before they do. Because that person that says, I only want to fund the choir, I'm like, great, that's lovely, but if we're just singing to an empty church, what's the point? So we really have to make certain that the whole church is funded and the whole budget is funded. It's more education that goes along with that. So thank you for that question. There's been a conversation in the chat that there are tools that Bex is offering from the diocese to help with websites. So I love all the ministry area tools and teams that you have in your diocese, and that there's this much diocesan support. It's not true of every diocese. So you
I,
guys are lucky.
I do have something, I've worked with Bex and as a newer communications director. She has gumption. She is well knowledged in how to use all the new gadgets in the world. And she truthfully, really, really is very helpful. So the website, I don't know if she could actually design it, but she knows people. She's very connected. I would say reach out to her with any question that you may possibly have, and she'll, if she doesn't know the answer, she'll find you the answer.
Great. Love that. You have a good thing going in your diocese. What are some other questions that you might have about stewardship or campaigns or ideas or questions? Well, I want to let you know that this isn't the end of our conversation, that I will provide my contact information to you all. Uh, I am a resource. I read dozens, sometimes even many dozens of stewardship letters every year from congregations all over the country, and give feedback. I answer questions if you're trying to tackle a tough problem or a situation. Just email me, text me, call me. I love having conversation about stewardship. I have the beautiful gift of being able to focus 100% of my time on stewardship, and I love this. So please take advantage of that. I am a thought partner for you all, and I will answer questions when asked. I'll also come back anytime Tammy invites me to chat with you all. I see a question from Sally. Sally?
How do you encourage people to tell their stories? We've been working on that for quite a long time at our small church, and people are really reticent to speak.
Yeah, public speaking is not everybody's favorite thing. I will give you that. So, a couple of tools that I use. The first is offer a script, and you don't have to script every word because you want their story to be their story. But give them a starting line, give them point one, point two, point three, which are your own story, and then a closing summary, right? So that they can think that through, and then offer maybe to listen to it before they stand up in church and deliver it. And you're a person that maybe they'll trust or whatever, and you can be like, that was a good 2 minutes, or we're still going on 5, and maybe it's time to tighten it up. So give them that opportunity to rehearse it. I think a lot of times people are intimidated because and 2 minutes is a long time and it's also a short time. And people will start to like fill up the space when they don't need to. So by giving them a little script, I think that that really helps. Also, you know, asking them what stories they hear about other nonprofits or other things in the world that inspire them, and then asking them to mirror that. So, like, when your nonprofit that you support sends you a letter and it gives a story about someone who was helped by your gift, did that resonate with you? And what would you, if you were telling a story about your church and how that gift inspires you, like, what would you say? So, ask them to use a model that they've seen, or watching PBS at fundraising time. What are the stories that people are telling about this
Mhm.
program and how it means something to them or whatever? That's stuff that they can resonate with and then imagine themselves doing. So give them a little bit of that. Storytelling, I think, is the most important thing about stewardship because
Mhm.
it's authentic, it's personal, and it talks about the mission and the impact.
Oh, good ideas. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally, for the question. There's a lot happening in the chat. Catherine, you are a good typist and you have lots of great ideas. Thank you for that. So um, Catherine recommends the narrative budget. I will make sure that the link goes out to the narrative budget tool. Um, and reminding us all that Catherine's reminding us all that we need to have donor-centric fundraising. Ask for all the ways that people want to engage. Love it. Jolene, you've got something. Go for it.
Well, so I've been with nonprofits where, the leader of the nonprofit, it makes sense if they're also engaged in the giving process because, again, they're the leader and they can provide that inspiration for others to want to give. I think when we talk about giving with the church, it's the first time I've experienced a hesitancy, and I get it, for perhaps the priest to be involved in knowing who gave or who didn't. And I get that. I guess outside of the church, for example, if there's, I don't know, the president of the college is often having unique donor meetings with those that give. Um, and but I understand how there could be this fear that will a priest treat somebody different if they know how much they gave or didn't. And so do you have any advice, I guess, other than having something saying that we will be confidential with donor information? Um, how do you get around that of the reality of, but you want, because when people give, if they increase their giving, maybe they're saying that they want to get more involved, right? The priest should know maybe. Maybe if someone decreased their giving, it's an opportunity to say, are they struggling? Maybe that's an opportunity to check in with them. That's another maybe data point. So any advice on this?
Have lots of thoughts and advice. So yes, all of that about clergy knowing they know things, they hear things, and we also need to feed information back to them, right? Because they're not mind readers. And so we need to remember that that's really helpful. I believe that clergy should know what their members give. And TENS has a whole article on it, which I'll make sure that you all get a copy of. And this is the reason why. Clergy are good at boundaries. They learn about us and we share with them our personal struggles, maybe about addiction or marriage troubles that we're having or things that we want to confess, right? And we trust them with that information, which is serious, big stuff. Why can't we also talk about money with our clergy and anticipate that they'll still see us with love and respect and dignity and not treat us any differently? because they know what we give or don't give, or what we could be giving but aren't. Uh, we have to trust that clergy aren't going to think that way, that in fact, they are going to use the same boundaries and same professional. They've gone to a professional school to learn this and have a whole experience of being a priest to embody that work. So let's remember this, not just about confidentiality, it's about good boundaries and dignity and pastoral care that our clergy have with us and for us. And so again, it's also something they will keep in confidence, right? They don't talk about your marriage woes to someone else or your health concerns to someone else. They're not going to talk about your money to someone else either. So that information is secure and safe in those pastoral relationships that are so important to us. It's only because we have weirdness about money that we imagine that it'll be weird in a system, but it's not. It's actually a pretty honest, straightforward process. Um, so that's how I deal with that, and that's how I coach clergy who are hesitant to know that information too. I'm like, remember that you learn lots of things about your members, and you're able to sort all that out, and treat everyone with the dignity that they have. Love it. Valerie uses Quaker questions in icebreakers and warm-ups. I love those. It just gets stuff started, right? Uh, Something you wore when you were 6 years old, or how was your home heated? You learn a lot of information about how somebody's home was heated, about how they grew up and things that are important to them. And it gets people sharing. This goes back to Sally's question. How do you get people to start telling stories? You ask very simple, deep questions that are easy to answer, that are non-threatening. And then they get used to that storytelling model. Love it. You guys are on top of it. And we are over time. So I want to appreciate the fact that we're doing this work. Tammy and I are in connection. There are opportunities for us to come back and do more of this work together. I really appreciate the work you're doing as a new combined diocese to stay in touch with each other and grow. You're an inspiration to a lot of us in the church. I want you to know that we're all paying attention and support you in your work. I also want you to know that you are not alone in stewardship. It feels lonely sometimes because the burden is there and the work is true. But you're not alone. TENS has 40 years of experience creating models and methods and ideas. And if I can't answer a question, I have 12 amazing board members that love to get involved in conversations with folks, and a whole network of stewardship folks around the church that can be activated. So you're a part of that. Use us. Stay in touch. Blessings on your work, on your ministry, on your stewardship efforts, on your congregations, on your families and your homes and your lives. And thank you on behalf of a church that needs you for doing the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Good night, friends. Expect a video.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Tammy. Let's talk soon.
Yep,
Bye.
bye.
Thank you.